In today's hyper-polarized political landscape, congressional hearings often feel less like forums for governance and more like arenas for ideological combat. We expect sharp questions, pointed disagreements, and even occasional raised voices. But sometimes an exchange transcends the usual partisan sparring. It becomes intensely personal, cutting through the noise with raw, unfiltered animosity that leaves everyone watching utterly captivated. What happens when a routine hearing already simmering with tension suddenly detonates into a brutal personal takedown witnessed live by millions? This wasn't just another political squabble. It was a moment where Representative Jasmine Crockett faced off against Donald Trump's National Press Secretary, Karoline Leavitt, creating a viral shock wave that exposed deep fault lines in American politics. The confrontation wasn't just about policy. It became a referendum on respect, decorum, and the very nature of political attacks today. The stage for this extraordinary clash was a House Oversight Committee hearing. This committee by its very nature is often ground zero for political warfare. Tasked with investigating the government and exposing waste, fraud, and abuse, its hearings frequently involve high-stakes accusations and intense scrutiny, making it a pressure cooker environment. Even on slow days on this particular day, the official agenda, likely centered around contentious topics like investigations into the Biden administration or the actions of Attorney General Merrick Garland, almost immediately faded into the background. The real story wasn't going to be found in the procedural details. Adding fuel to the already combustible atmosphere was the presence of Karoline Leavitt. Not merely a commentator or witness, her specific role as the National Press Secretary for Donald Trump's presidential campaign carried immense weight. Her appearance signaled a direct line to the MAGA movement, inserting campaign rhetoric and loyalty tests directly into the formal proceedings of Congress. The air was thick, not just with political disagreement, but with the underlying currents of campaign battles and deep-seated personal animosities that define modern American politics. Few could have predicted the precise nature of the explosion, but the conditions were undeniably ripe for conflict. Something was bound to happen, but what unfolded next went far beyond typical political theater. Amidst the back and forth, Karoline Leavitt took direct aim at Representative Crockett. While the exact phrasing quickly became a subject of debate online, reports indicated Leavitt made a comment criticizing Crockett's delivery, questioning her speaking style, or perhaps suggesting she lacked a necessary filter. It wasn't a critique of Crockett's legislative record or her policy positions. It was personal. It felt like an attempt to police the Congresswoman's demeanor, a tactic often perceived as dismissive, particularly when directed at women, and especially women of color in positions of power. This wasn't just disagreement. It was a clear deviation from substantive debate into the realm of personal jabs, crossing an often blurred line in congressional discourse. This comment, seemingly small in the grand scheme of political insults, acted as the detonator, the specific spark that ignited the simmering powder keg of the hearing room. The focus instantly shifted from the committee's business to this burgeoning personal feud. In the immediate aftermath of Leavitt's remark, there wasn't an instant furious outburst from Crockett. Instead, witnesses and viewers noted a distinct pause. Perhaps it was a moment of disbelief or maybe a flash of anger quickly suppressed. More likely, it was a moment of intense strategic calculation. Representative Crockett, known for her legal background and sharp analytical mind, seemed to be assessing the situation, weighing her options. Responding in kind with a simple insult might have satisfied an immediate urge, but would likely have drawn criticism for lowering the discourse. Ignoring it might have been seen as a weakness. What she did instead suggested a rapid analysis of the attack and the attacker, identifying a way to turn the tables not just on Leavitt, but on the broader political forces she represented. This brief silence was pregnant with anticipation, the calm before a carefully orchestrated storm. It signaled that her response wouldn't be reactive, but devastatingly proactive. Then the master stroke. Crockett didn't just defend her own speaking style or dismiss Leavitt's comment directly. She executed a stunning pivot, reaching back into the recent archives of viral political clashes. She deliberately invoked the highly publicized, deeply controversial incident involving her Republican colleague, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. For those unfamiliar, Greene had not long before made intensely personal and derogatory remarks about Crockett's physical appearance during another committee hearing using phrases like bleach blonde, bad built, butch body. Comments widely condemned as unprofessional and offensive. By bringing this specific ugly incident into the conversation with Leavitt, Crockett wasn't just changing the subject. She was performing a brilliant act of political jujitsu. She was forcing Leavitt, as a representative of the Trump wing, often associated with Greene, to implicitly grapple with that behavior. The message was clear. How can you critique my filter when figures you align with engage in this kind of vitriol? It was a high-risk, high-reward maneuver designed to expose perceived hypocrisy on a grand scale. With the MTG incident now firmly planted back in the spotlight, Crockett delivered her verbal counterpunch. She didn't mince words. She directly confronted Leavitt, essentially challenging her to defend or condemn Green's past behavior. The core of her argument was surgically precise. She framed Leavitt's critique of her own delivery as utterly hypocritical given the documented instances of far more egregious personal attacks emanating from within Leavitt's political circle. Crockett effectively linked Leavitt's seemingly minor jab to a larger pattern of disrespect and bullying tactics. She argued were characteristic of the modern MAGA movement. She questioned Leavitt's standing to comment on decorum at all. The delivery was reported as cool, sharp, and devastatingly effective. Leavitt appeared visibly taken back, seemingly unprepared for Crockett to so deftly weaponize the GOP's own recent history against her. It wasn't just a clapback. It was a meticulously constructed argument designed to dismantle Leavitt's position and reframe the entire exchange. The perceived power dynamic shifted dramatically in that moment. The fallout was instantaneous and overwhelming. The exchange didn't just make waves. It triggered a digital tsunami. Clips of the confrontation flooded platforms like X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, racking up millions of views within hours. Jasmine Crockett and Karoline Leavitt surged to the top of trending lists. The internet exploded with commentary ranging from celebratory memes praising Crockett's epic takedown to furious debates about the death of civility in Congress. Pundits on cable news dedicated entire segments to dissecting the interaction, analyzing the strategy, the tone, and the potential political ramifications. Supporters lauded Crockett for her brilliance, her courage, and her refusal to be silenced or diminished. They saw it as a powerful moment of standing up to perceived bullies. Critics, however, decried the entire affair as unseemly and counterproductive, arguing that Crockett, by bringing up the TG feud, had unnecessarily escalated tensions and contributed to the erosion of congressional decorum. The narrative wasn't just reported. It was actively shaped and contested in real time across the digital landscape. This single exchange dominated the political conversation, overshadowing whatever official business the committee was meant to address. Beyond the immediate spectacle and the viral frenzy, this confrontation tapped into much deeper and more sensitive issues woven into the fabric of American politics. Representative Crockett herself has been vocal about the unique pressures and amplified scrutiny faced by black women navigating the corridors of power. Assertiveness can be swiftly labeled as aggression. Passion is readily misinterpreted as uncontrolled anger. The concept of tone policing, criticizing the way something is said rather than the substance of the argument, often deployed disproportionately against women and minorities, felt particularly relevant here. By connecting Leavitt's jab about her delivery to Green's overtly offensive comments about her appearance, Crockett implicitly highlighted what she and her supporters see as a persistent pattern. It wasn't just about defending herself in that specific moment. It was about pushing back against a perceived systemic tendency to marginalize, caricature, or silence black women who dare to be powerful and outspoken in political arenas historically dominated by white men. The incident became a potent symbol in ongoing debates about representation, identity politics, and the often unspoken biases that influence political interactions. So, when the echoes of the clash finally begin to fade, what are we truly left with? We witnessed a standard, if tense, congressional hearing, utterly consumed by a personal spark. We saw Karoline Leavitt, representing the Trump campaign, deliver a jab aimed at diminishing a Democratic congresswoman. And we watched Jasmine Crockett respond not with a simple defense, but with a calculated, devastating rhetorical maneuver, linking the immediate comment to past controversies and forcing her opponent onto deeply unfavorable ground. The resulting viral explosion in the subsequent debates laid bare the fractured state of political discourse, the power of social media to amplify conflict, and the complex intersections of race, gender, and power in Washington, D.C. Was this a masterclass in navigating the treacherous waters of modern politics, a necessary defense against escalating personal attacks? Or was it a regrettable sign of further decay in congressional civility, where substantive debate is increasingly drowned out by personal vendettas? Perhaps it was both. This single explosive moment serves as a stark reminder of the intense pressures, strategic complexities, and deep-seated tensions defining American political life today. What's your take on this confrontation? Does it change your view of the individuals involved or the state of politics? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Amidst the procedural maneuvers and partisan talking points, the critical moment arrived. Karoline Leavitt directed a pointed comment specifically at Representative Crockett. Accounts of the exact words vary slightly, as they often do in rapidly unfolding events, but the consistent thread is that Leavitt's remark targeted Crockett's manner of speaking, her delivery, or implied a need for her to adopt a different, perhaps more subdued tone. A suggestion often interpreted as needing a filter. This wasn't an argument about the facts under discussion or a challenge to Crockett's policy stance. It was a distinctly personal critique, venturing into the charged territory of evaluating a colleague's, or in this case, a congresswoman's very presentation of self in the context of political discourse, especially concerning women and minorities in power. Such comments are often perceived as attempts to diminish authority, to police expression, and to shift focus away from substance. This remark, whether strategically planned or spontaneously uttered, served as the precise catalyst. It was the verbal spark landing on the dry tinder of accumulated political tension, instantly shifting the hearing's gravitational center towards a direct personal conflict between these two women. The air crackled. The confrontation was now unavoidable. What happened next was crucial. Representative Crockett didn't immediately lash out. There wasn't a knee-jerk emotional outburst, which perhaps Leavitt might have anticipated or even hoped for, as it could have been spun as unprofessional. Instead, those present and subsequent viewers noted a perceptible pause, a moment of stillness. Was it shock, contemplation, or the rapid worrying of a sharp legal and political mind processing the attack vector and formulating the most effective counteroffensive? Given Crockett's background as a lawyer and her established reputation for methodical, incisive questioning, the latter seems most probable. This wasn't just about defending herself. It was about seizing control of the narrative. This brief interlude built palpable suspense. It signaled that the response when it came would likely be deliberate, strategic, and aim for maximum impact, potentially turning the attack back on the aggressor in a way they didn't foresee. The silence itself became a form of communication, a harbinger of the rhetorical storm about to break, and then the strategic brilliance of the counter-move became clear. Crockett opted not for a simple denial or a defense of her own speaking style. Instead, she executed a breathtaking rhetorical pivot, instantly broadening the scope of the conflict. She deliberately reached back to a very recent, very raw, and highly publicized controversy. The incident where Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene had directed deeply offensive and personal insults about Crockett's physical appearance during a previous committee hearing. By invoking Greene's notorious bleach blonde, bad-built butch body comments, remarks that had drawn widespread condemnation even from some within the GOP, Crockett wasn't merely resurrecting an old feud. She was performing a sophisticated act of political association. She was implicitly yet unmistakably linking Karoline Leavitt as Trump's spokesperson often associated with the Marjorie Greene represents to that previous instance of egregious disrespect. The maneuver forced Leavitt into an impossible position. Either tacitly condone Greene's behavior by dismissing Crockett's point or distance herself from a prominent figure within her own political alignment. It was a calculated gamble leveraging outrage over a past incident to expose perceived hypocrisy in the present moment. It transformed a personal jab into a commentary on the tactics and decorum or lack thereof of an entire political faction. With the shadow of the MTG incident looming large, Crockett delivered her response. It was reportedly sharp, direct, and surgically targeted.